Hello, good evening. Welcome back. Second part of Cinderella. So let's get going, shall we? Start with the basics, a little introduction for you guys.
Jackanory, Jackanory.
There we go. So this evening I shall be continuing the story of Cinderella from the Ladybird Well-Loved Tales. Just a little recap for any of you who are unfamiliar with the story of Cinderella. So Cinderella's a young girl, lives with her stepsisters and her father. Not really having a good run of it at the moment, to be honest. Her sisters treat her really badly. They're quite scornful because of that. They're quite ugly, inside and out. She has to do all the housework all the time. She sleeps by the fire because basically she has nowhere else to sleep, hence her name Cinderella, because her face is dirty. Hello, Lorna. Because her face is dirty and unclean. She's got a really bad run of it in the fashion sense. Basically, she has one grey dress and a pair of wooden shoes that are talked about quite a lot in this version of the story. Not really sure why. So remember the wooden shoes, they're important. And basically, the king is arranging a feast for the son, the prince, who is basically having a ball. He's going to have 3 balls on 3 consecutive nights, and the 2 sisters are invited, and Cinderella isn't because she's quite upset about that. So cut to the chase. Basically, they go off to the ball, not happy. And where it was left last night was suddenly Cinderella heard a kind voice saying, "What is the matter, my dear?" She jumped up from her stool and turned to see who it could be, and there stood her fairy godmother, smiling kindly at her. "I would like to have a beautiful dress and be able to go to the ball," asked Cinderella. "I've never been to a ball, and I've never had a ball gown," she went on. "And I would love to see the prince." Quite a specific list there, right? "And so you shall, my dear," said her fairy godmother. "Dry your eyes and then do exactly as I tell you." Turn the page. Cinderella dried her eyes and smiled at her godmother. "First, I want you to go into the garden and bring me the biggest pumpkin you can find," said the fairy godmother. "Very well," said Cinderella, and she ran off to the garden. She picked the biggest pumpkin she could find and took it to her fairy godmother. The fairy godmother touched the pumpkin with her magic wand, and immediately it turned into the most wonderful carriage you can ever imagine. The outside was made of shining gold, and the inside was lined with red velvet. And here we can see, courtesy of these wonderful illustrations from Ladybird, there she is, Cinderella, going to get her pumpkin, obviously very, very excited. And you can see she's obviously had some sort of accident because it appears she's actually only got like one leg. So not sure what's happened to the rest of her leg there. Some sort of gardening accident, but I'm sure that the fairy godmother will be able to fix that. So let's see what happens. Over the page. "Now, run and fetch me the mouse trap from the pantry," said the fairy godmother. "Very well," replied Cinderella, and she ran off to the pantry. She found the mouse trap on the floor, and behind the pantry door there were 6 mices inside it. Cinderella brought the mouse trap to her godmother. One touch of the magic wand, and the door of the mouse trap flew open, and out ran the 6 mices, one after the other. As each mouse was touched by the magic wand, it changed into a fine grey horse. 6 fine grey horses to pull the golden carriage with the red lining inside. And here we can see, as we said before, fairy godmother in her Welsh national dress, mousetrap on the floor, 6 mices. Cinderella obviously still incapacitated, problem with her leg because she can't stand up, so we'll see what happens there. Turn the page. Are you all ready? "Next, Run and fetch me the rat trap from the cellar, said the fairy godmother. There's obviously quite a vermin sort of rodent problem in here that needs to be addressed. Considering she's tidying the house, she doesn't really keep it that clean. Very well, said Cinderella as she ran down the steps to the cellar. So obviously her legs are now okay. She found the rat trap with one rat in it and took it to her godmother. One touch of the fairy wand and the rat trap flew open and out ran the rat. The fairy godmother touched the rat with her wand and it changed into a smart coachman. Dressed in red livery and trimmed with gold braid. So he matches the coach, right? Sort of colour coordination. This is going to be so amazing. And there he is. Look. Nice sort of dapper gent there. Touching her there with the wand, touching him rather with the wand, looking all astute. And there you can see, obviously, her legs are restored and she can walk now. Lastly, said Cinderella's godmother, I want you to run and bring me the 2 lizards that are behind the cucumber frame at the bottom of the garden. Quite specific there. You know, she sort of realised that, number one, they got a cucumber frame. Number 2, the location of the frame, and also the fact that there's 2 lizards. Anyway, we digress. Very well, said Cinderella, and she ran into the garden. She looked behind the cucumber frame, and there she found 2 small lizards. What are the chances, right? Which she brought to her godmother. Cinderella's fairy godmother touched the lizards with her fairy wand. They turned into 2 smart footmen, each dressed, everybody, in red livery, trimmed with gold braid to match the coachman's livery. And there we see, obviously, for those of you who have a cucumber frame, this won't be a surprise. There's a cucumber frame, a couple of pots beside, and obviously 2 lizards who obviously, you know, like cucumbers. So yeah, great news. So there was now a golden coach lined with red velvet and drawn by how many? Everyone remember? 6 grey horses. There was a coachman in red livery to drive the coach and 2 footmen, each in red livery, to open the door. 2 footmen to the door. 2 quota to the door. Yes, 2 to the door. Cinderella glanced down at her old grey dress and her wooden shoes. Maybe we come back again to the shoes. One more touch of my magic wand. She's Chinese. Magic wand, my dear, said her godmother. Here we go. Then there happened the most wonderful magic of all. Ready for this? Cinderella found herself in a beautiful ball gown of pale pink silk. Its skirts spread wide. And there were tiny frills around the neck and down the front of the bodice. Pink rosebuds were fastened in her fair curls, and on her feet were dainty pink satin slippers. And on her feet were, dainty pink satin slippers. So no glass. All right, we'll go with this. Okay, we've got like till Friday, so there's still another 2 balls. I'm sure that Vera hasn't got it wrong. And here we go. There she is. Look at that pink, eh? Look, Ronnie Waller would be able to run up something like that in a matter of seconds, right? Lovely little pink bodices there. Not bit of a clash with the red and gold, but I'm sure it'll work in some people's colour palettes. Looking ace. And obviously there's Fairy Godmother. So, Cinderella's face was shining with joy. Not surprised, right? Oh, thank you, Godmother, she cried. Thank you. Enjoy yourself at the ball, my dear, said her godmother. But there is one thing you must remember. You must be home before the clock strikes midnight. For on the last stroke of 12, the coach will become a pumpkin again. The coach will become a pumpkin again. The horses mice. The coachman a rat. The footman lizards, and you yourself, the ragged girl you were. She, like, no punches pulled, cuts to the chase. Says it here, the ragged girl you were. I will remember, said Cinderella, as her godmother kissed her goodbye. The footman opened the door of the carriage. Cinderella sat down, spread out her skirts on the red velvet cushions. The coachman touched the horses with his whip, and... what is that sound? They were off to the ball! And tomorrow night we shall find out what happens when Cinderella meets her prince. Take care, guys, and I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow.